Welcome to part 3 of my sci-fi robot drone character Blender tutorial series. In this part we're going to be adding the lighting, and then we're going to add materials, and then we're also going to do some texture painting to make it look really awesome. So let's get started with this video. So I am going to, actually this timeline here, I'm just going to close it so that we have a little more space because I don't really need it. And then let me turn on my screencast keys. You can see what buttons I'm pressing right down in the corner. Okay, let's click on the world here. I want to add an environment texture, and I'll leave a link in the video description to the HDRI that I'm using on HDRI Haven. It's just a 1K version, so if you just want to download it, I'm going to click right here on the color, and I'm going to add the environment texture. And then I'm going to click on open. And then right behind me, I'm going to be using this Studio Small 06 HDR on HDRI Haven, and I'm just going to be downloading the 1K version. So link will be in the video description if you want to download the same one that I'm using. So I'm just going to click on this and then click on Open Image. Now, if I go into rendered mode and I'm here in Blender Eevee, again, you can do this in Cycles Render if you want, but I'm going to be doing this tutorial in Eevee. You can see now that when I go into rendered mode by pressing Z and moving my mouse up, you can see the HDRI around us. And then in the Eevee settings, I'm going to turn on the ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, and motion blur, because those are all going to help to make Eevee look a bit nicer. And then also you can see that these lights right here sometimes get in the way and they're a little bit annoying. So I'm going to make the background transparent. So to do that, I'm going to go right down here to the film, and then just click on transparent, just like that. And now the background is transparent. Okay, so let's go ahead and start adding these materials. So I'm going to just click on the robot head, and I'm going to go over here to the materials panel. I'll press new. I'm just going to call it metal. I'm going to make the base color very dark gray, and then I'm going to turn the metallic all the way up so it's a metal material. And then the roughness, if you want to, you could turn it just a little bit down just to make it a bit shinier. Okay, and then I want to add this material to almost all the other pieces because most of the robot is this material. So what I'm going to do is just select almost all the pieces. So I'm going to select all of these pieces. I'm just using B and box selecting. Select that. This one. So the only pieces I'm not selecting are these three right here, but all the other pieces are selected. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, holding down the shift key, make sure I select the robot's head last because that has the metal material. And now I can press Control L, and that's going to add the linking here. I'm going to click on materials. So what this is doing is it's telling it that it's going to link the material to all the others. And because we selected the metal head last, now if I press on that, it's going to give all the other materials that we had selected that black metal material. Okay, let's go ahead and add some other ones. So I'm going to add the light. So I'll just click on that, call it new. I'm just going to call it like red light. You can make it whatever color you want, of course. This I'm going to make an emission. I'm just going to click on this, and then the shortcut key is just to press E, and then it'll just bring an emission, or you can find it right here. It's right up there. Okay, I'm going to set it pretty bright because if it's pretty bright, then it'll have that glow there. And then if I set it to full red, it's gonna like look red, but I actually want it to look white and just have a red glow to it. So I'm gonna make it kind of a less saturated red. So that way the light is white and then the glow is the red color. And you can, over here on the bloom settings, if you go up here, go to the bloom, you can change the threshold. Like if you want to make it bigger, you can do that. Intensity, if you want to make it more intense, you could turn that up just a little bit. And you could change this color to a red color if you wanted. I think I'll do that because that just looks a little bit nicer. So I'm going to make it like a pink color or something like that. Okay, now let's go ahead and make this ring right here. I want this ring to be kind of a shiny color, like a shiny metal. So I'm going to click here, click on new. I'm going to call this one light metal because it's kind of going to be a light shiny metal. I'm going to make this one just kind of a gray color. The metallic, turn that to 1 because it's a metal color. And then the roughness, turn down. Just select that. I think I might turn it up a little bit so it's a bit brighter. Yeah, that's better. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and do this right here. Add a new material. Just call this like glass. It's like a camera maybe of the robot. I'm going to click on this and then press G, and that'll go to the glass shader. And then the color, I'm going to make it almost all the way black. and then the roughness, turn that down. You can see if I turn this all the way to black, you won't be able to see anything even though the roughness is turned down. So just make it a very dark gray. And then this IOR, I'm going to set this to like 78. And that way you can see the reflections a lot better. Let me just turn the brightness up a little bit. There we go. If I turn this up a little bit, you'll be able to see the reflections a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to save this again, file and save that. Okay, let's go ahead and add this red glowing material onto this little area right here, because I think that looks really cool. So I'm going to zoom over to this. I'll tab into edit mode here. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I am on the face select mode. You can press 3 to go to the face select mode. So I'm going to hold down Alt and select this loop, then hold down Shift and Alt and select this loop, and then hold down Shift and Alt and select this loop. So now we have all these loops selected. Now to add this material with the other material, I'm going to click on this plus button up here. Then instead of clicking on new, I'm going to add in that red light material. And then we need to tell it where we want it to be on the object. And because we have this selected, I can press assign. And now the robot has a little glowy thing right up there. Okay, now these plates here, I actually want these to be a different material. Right here on the modeling, I think I forgot to add a mirror modifier on this one. So I'm just going to go over here. Okay, so what I did is I need to turn off the Y and turn on the X. There you go. Okay, so I want to add a different type of material, like a lighter metal. So I'm going to go over here to the materials, and then I want to duplicate this material and then edit it. So I'm going to click on this little file thing here that'll duplicate the material, and I'm going to call it maybe like gray metal. And then I want to make it a little bit brighter and maybe a little bit shinier. So turn the roughness down a little bit, maybe a little bit brighter. Okay, now to add this color to the other ones, I can just click right here and drag, and then I can drop the color onto that one. And there we go. Now that's just a little bit brighter. All right, and then the guns down here, if I tab into edit mode on the little guns here, I want the round cylinders to be a shinier metal. So I'm going to deselect everything, move my mouse over it and press L, and then move my mouse over this one, press L, and move my mouse over this one and press L. And that's selecting all the linked vertices of whatever object our cursor is over. So now what I'm going to do is click on the plus here again, going to do the drop down and click on the light metal, and then click on assign. Because we had that selected, it now has that shiny material. So now the last material that I'm going to add is all the little bolts here. I want to make that the lighter metal. So to make this easy, I'm going to hide the objects that don't have any bolts. So I'm just going to select this object, press H to hide it. This doesn't have a bolt, so I'm going to press H to hide it. This one and all these here, so I'm going to shift select all these, press H to hide those. And then these don't have any bolts. I'm just going to select these, press H to hide that. And then just go into wireframe. I'm just going to box select these, press H to hide that. So now we only have the objects that we need to add the lighter color onto the bolts. So what I'm going to do is just select one of these, and I'm going to click on the plus and then add the light metal. Now what I want to do is shift select all the others, or you can box select them if that's easier. And then lastly, shift click on back on this one that has both of them. Now what I'm going to do is press Ctrl L and then make link to the materials. So now if I click on these, they all have the light metal. All right, so now that these all have the metal and the light material, I'm going to again select all of them, tab into edit mode, deselect everything. And now what I'm going to do is just hover my mouse over all the bolts and press L and just go along here. This might take a moment. Hopefully you don't have a ton of bolts. I'm just going to press L, select all of them. I'll go to the other side and then just move my mouse over and press L, just select all of them. Oh, and I selected the wrong one, so I'll just press Ctrl Z to undo that. All right. So I'm just moving my mouse over and L to select all the linked vertices so that they're all together, they're all combined. Okay. And just a few more. Go over here. I need to select these ones too, actually. Forgot a few. There we go. So now if I press G, I can move around, and then just press escape to bring that back. And you can see that I have all the bolts selected. So now what I'm going to do is click on the light metal and then press assign. Now if I go into rendered mode, you can see all the bolts have that lighter material. So I'm just going to press Alt H now. Alt H will unhide everything, and you can see that the robot's back and he has some basic materials on him. So now let's go ahead and do the texture painting. Alright, now before we get started with the texture painting, I'm going to be using these two grunge maps that we're going to actually use to texture paint onto the model. So you can see there's this grunge map here, and I'm going to leave links in the video description to a Patreon post and a Gumroad post where you can download these two maps and use them for the tutorial. And if you've purchased this tutorial, then these will be with the other files, so just go ahead and grab those. So I'm going to be using this grunge map for adding some like dirt and stuff on the robot, and then also using this to add a little bit of like scrapes and scratches onto the metal. And I did want to thank the original creators of these textures. So for this texture right here, it's the Painted Metal 006. This was on cc0textures.com. I just downloaded this one right here. If you want to go ahead and download that, you can. And I used the metalness map from that texture. So thank you to cc0textures. And then also the original image for the other one was this grungy map from SGND. So thank you for making this texture. It's on Pixabay. So what I did is I downloaded this and then I threw it into Krita and did a little bit of editing to it to make it work better for what we're using it for. Alright, let's jump back over into Blender now and do the texture painting. Okay, now before we do the texture painting, I do want to do a little bit of UV unwrapping because we need to UV unwrap the mesh before we texture paint on it. And I am only going to be texture painting the head and the body. So if you want to, you could go ahead after this and texture paint all the other parts or whatever you want to do, but I'm just going to be texture painting these two parts. So on the head here, I'm going to tab in edit mode. Oh, let me just make sure my screencast keys is on. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select. I'm going to go zoom in right here. And what I'm going to do is Alt click on this loop to select it, and then Alt select Alt and Shift, hold down Alt and Shift and select that so that they're both selected. And then I'm also going to hold down Alt and Shift and select this one right here. What we're going to do now is press Control E, and we're going to mark seams because basically we need to cut out the mesh so that it can be UV unwrapped. So I'm going to hit on Mark Seam right there. And then now that we have those seams marked, I'm going to double tap A to select everything, and I will press U, and that's going to bring up the unwrap, and just click on unwrap. Now if we go to the UV editing, you can see what it's done. So this is pretty good. I do want to play around with this a little bit, but that's pretty good for what we're going to be doing. So now I need to add a texture that we're actually going to texture paint on. So I'm going to click on the new button. So I'm going to call this head because it's the head of the robot. Then I'm going to call it plates, because what we're going to be doing is like cutting in some little sci-fi details and plates and things, and we're going to be using this for the normal. So that's what I'm going to call that one. Then on the width here and height here, I want these to be pretty high, so they're pretty high detail. I'm going to make it 5,000. Now, if this is going to make the texture painting laggy on your computer, then you could go less. 5,000 works good for me though, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The color, I'm just going to keep it all the way to black. And then I'll just click on OK. So now that we've added that, you can see there's the head plates and the UV unwrap is being put on the object. Now this bottom area here, I'm not going to be texture painting on that because that's like the bottom of the robot. So I'm going to press L to select this and scale it way down, just like maybe, actually I could just put it in the middle here, just like that. And then what I want to do is press L and L, select these two, kind of bring them up a little bit. I basically want to make these as big as they can be. L, scale this one up. L is to select everything that is linked. And it's really important that these aren't overlapping on each other. So this, I'm going to click on this, press L, scale it down a little bit. And I'll just do something like that, okay? So that looks pretty good. Now this probably isn't the most optimized, but it's going to be fine for what we're doing. So now what I'm going to do is go over to the shading tab, and we need to actually add that texture on to the material. But I don't want the other objects to have the texture painting. So what I'm going to do is click on this. And what that'll do is it'll make a duplicate material and make it separate from the others. Now what I can do is call it head. And now you can see if I click on the other objects, they're back to the metal. But this is separate because I don't want the texture to be on the other ones. So they have to be a separate object. And also the body here, I'll do the same thing. So I'll click on the body, press this, and that'll make it a separate material. I'm just going to call it body. And now if I click on the other pieces, These are just the metal one, this is the body, and this is the head. So that way they're separate materials. Okay, back on the head, I'm going to press Shift A here. I'm going to search for image and add the image texture. And what I'm going to do is this color here, I'm going to plug it up to the normal, and then I'll press Shift A, search for a bump node, drop the bump node right in there, and plug this up to the height. So now this image texture is going through the height and then into the normal. Now what I want to do is open up that texture that we created. So if I press this, I can click on the head plates. So now what we need to do is go into the texture painting tab right here. And then in the texture painting tab, you can see that if I click and drag on this, we can start texture painting the object. So you can see that it's black and we're texture painting white. You can change the color right here, but that's actually what I want because I want to tell it that the white is going to dip in and then the black is going to come out so that we can make those little plates. So I'm going to press F and make my brush really small, and you can totally use a drawing tablet if you want to. I do have a drawing tablet, but because this is kind of simple, I'm just basically going to be doing a lot of clicking. I'm actually not going to use a drawing tablet, but you totally could if you'd like to. Now let's go into rendered mode. I'm going to press Z and move my mouse up, and you can see that now we're in rendered mode. And why I want to be in rendered mode is because when you draw, you can see that it automatically gives a preview of that cutting into the metal. So it's really cool. If you want to, you could work like this, but I don't think that looks as cool. But if you go into rendered mode, you can see here, looks really awesome. So you can kind of see what's happening as you draw. Now, as I said, I want to make some different plates. So I don't want to just draw free-handed. I want to draw straight lines. So what I'm going to do is go down here, and you can see if I keep scrolling down, I'm going to open up this stroke. And then right now the stroke method is on space, and that's just, it just adds dots as you drag. I want to click on this and change it to line. So if I change it to line, you can see that now I can drag, and then when I let go, it adds that right there. So I want to make my brush even smaller. So I'm going to press F, make my brush really small. I'm holding down Shift after I press F, and I can make more detailed movements. And you can also see that over here, we could actually paint on this if we wanted to. So you can see if I like paint across here, it's going to add a line right there, and I actually want to do that. I'll do that later on. And then of course, if you make a mistake, you can press Control Z to undo your movement. So for now, let's just scale this down a little bit, and let's start texture painting. So I'm going to start right here. I'm just going to drag up. Of course, this is super creative and you can do whatever you like. But what I'm going to do is just click and drag and add some cool sci-fi plates. Something like that. Oh, that's a little too high up. So I'm going to press Control Z to undo that. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's just keep going now. I think I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. I actually want to make a kind of a plate coming through here. So what I'll do is scale this, pull this kind of back so that we can see this. And you can see this right here, that's the little eye. So this is like the front of the robot. So if I just like click and drag and make a line right here, you can see what it's doing. I want to make it kind of straight, so going like this. So I'll Control Z that. Let me try this again. Okay, there we go. That's what I want. So you can see it added that little thing in there. Now actually it's a little too thick, so what I'm going to do is press F, make my brush even smaller, Control Z that, just try it one more time. All right, there we go. I like how that size is and where it's placed. So it's just really thin here. So now I'm going to just pull this back out of the way. Let's keep going. So I want to add like some sort of little sci-fi plate thing here. So I'm going to go like this, come down, go over. Okay. And then later on, we're also going to be adding some bolts into it too. Let's see here. I'm going to make something cool here. There, and then maybe come back. This is what really starts to make the robot just like look really nice, you know? Adding that little bit of detail, just that last little bit of work. Okay, and then on the back here, let's make something cool. I think right here I'll make some rectangular ones. So that, and then also I think maybe just right here do another one. You can definitely grab like reference images, like look up like sci-fi robots or sci-fi details and things and look at different textures and kind of get an idea for what you want to do. Let's see, right here I want to add some little lines coming there, just a few different areas, and then also maybe drag like this over like that. And again, if for some reason the shading or the lighting is hard to see, you could just go like that and you could texture paint like this, and that's totally fine. Let's keep going here. do something like that. Okay, let's see, maybe something cool here on the front, like this, and then maybe do another one. I'm really not doing anything super specific. I'm just kind of making up these designs. I already had an idea for what I wanted to make because I practiced this tutorial a few times already, but you really don't have to follow me exact. In fact, it's probably better if you just kind of made up your own thing. So just, do whatever you want. And then one really important thing, don't close your Blender file, because while you're texture painting, if you close your Blender file and you haven't saved the texture onto your computer, Blender won't keep that texture, and so you're going to lose it. So just do the texture painting all at once, or save this image and then keep on texture painting it later if you want. You could definitely go ahead and texture paint it later, but just make sure you save this image before you close Blender. And I'll show you how to do that right after we finish here. Let's see, let's see, I don't know if this is going to look cool. Let's try something like this, coming over, then going back, and then going back in. How does that look? That's pretty cool. I think I'll keep that. What I'm going to do is I want to make a plate like from here coming down here. So I'm just going to click and drag from here to here. That looks pretty cool. Okay, and I think we are almost done with this. I just want to add a little bit more. Something maybe right here. Let's try, I'll add something right here. Maybe I'll add something else right here. Okay, so now let's go on to making some little bolts that are like kind of, little hole bolt kind of things. So what I'm going to do is just make my brush bigger. Right here on the line, I'm going to change this to the dots. And then what I can do is just go around, and what I can do is just click on the different corners or wherever I want and make these little kind of bolt screw things. Okay, so let me just go around, add some different ones here. I think right here, this would be pretty cool to like add some around this. So I'm going to just go around here, add some different ones. That's pretty cool. Maybe just add a few around the bottom here. This really makes it look like they're like, bolts that have been screwed in, or little metal plates that have been screwed into the robot. Maybe if you need to do some maintenance on the robot, you can open up one of these plates or something. Okay. Maybe I'll add some bolts in here. Like if the robot drone is damaged, maybe they unscrew the bolts and take off that plate there so they can, fix something. Maybe add another one there. Okay. I don't want to add too many, of course, so just try to find a nice balance. Maybe I'll add one there, and one there. Okay, I'm going to call that done. So what I'll do is go over here, just bring this up. What I'm going to do is click on Image, and then click on Save As. And then just somewhere in your computer where you have the other files, I'm just going to save this as headplates.png. The name is right behind me, so just name it, and then click on Save As. I'm just saving this as a PNG. Okay, just click on Save As Image. Now that is saved, so if Blender gets closed, it's still going to keep this data. All right, let's go back to the shading now, and we can just see how that's looking. So the strength here, you can change this, like if you don't want it to be that strong, maybe having like a 0.5 might look better. Also, if you find that it looks like your plates are coming out instead of in, so if you click on this invert right here, that's going to change it. So basically whatever looks better to you, if you just go to like a shiny part, you can kind of see. I'm going to leave the invert button turned off, but you could definitely turn it on. It looks like if I leave it off, it's going in, and it looks like kind of looks like it's popping out. So I'm just going to leave it off. All right, so you can see that looks way cooler. Like the robot has a lot more detail and looks pretty nice. So let's go ahead and do pretty much the same thing to the bottom right here. And then after that, we'll go back and we'll do the little grungy bits to really make it look cool. So I'm going to click on this one. Let's go to just the layout here, just so that we can see this. Go back into the normal mode. I'm going to tab into edit mode here and do the same thing. So we need to UV unwrap this. So I'll just zoom in, hold down Alt and select this loop. Let's go down. I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift and select this one, and then also this one. And then I'm going to press Control E. We'll click on Mark Seam, and then double tap A and I'll press U and unwrap. So now if I go to UV editing right up there, you can see here's what it's done. And we're not going to be using those head plates, but don't worry about that. So you can see that it definitely could be better. Like these things right here, that's going to be like the bottom of it, and we're not going to be texture painting on that. So I'm going to press L and L with my mouse over these, scale them down a little bit, because yeah, we're not going to be texture painting on these. So I'm just going to scale them down, kind of move them out of the way here. And then these, if I press L, bring this one over, and then L and then just like scale these up and rotate them so that there's a lot more space and, you know, we can texture paint more effectively. So I'll just scale this way up. Make sure that these aren't overlapping and make sure that these aren't going out of the texture. So I'm just gonna scale these up, something like that. Okay, that's decent for what I'm gonna do. So I don't want to use the head plates because I want to make the body plates. So I will exit this. It's still in Blender. I'm just exiting it from the view. I'll click on New, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do 5,000. I'm going to leave it to black, and I'm going to call this Body Plates, or you can call it Body Normal, or whatever you want to do. And then just leave it at blank, a black color, 5,000. Okay, press OK. And then again, we're going to do the texture painting, and then make sure you don't close Blender until you've saved this image. So let's go over to texture painting now. So actually what we're going to do is go to shading. Again, we need to do the same thing. So Shift A, search for an image, drop the image texture right in here. We're going to add the body plates right in there. And then let's just connect the color to the normal, and then Shift A, I'm going to search for a bump node. We'll drop the bump node right in between these two. And then this normal needs to be plugged up to the height. And then you can't see anything. That's because we haven't done the texture painting yet. So let's hop over to the texture painting tab, bring this out a little bit. Now we'll go into rendered mode, and we're just going to do the same thing. So you can see that's adding the dots there. What I want to do is change this to line, change that to line, and now it's going to add that. All right, let's just go ahead and make some more cool sci-fi detail. So I'm going to do a similar thing. Let me just make that a little bit smaller. I'm going to have the similar kind of idea because the robot needs to look kind of consistent, but I'll make it, you know, some of these things a little bit bigger. Let's add something right here, and then maybe add a plate going down there, and then maybe something going down and around here. We can also texture paint this here. So I'll just add some lines, add some more detail. You should be able to just texture paint inside here as well. So if you want to add some lines or whatever you want to do, maybe I'll make one coming up like that. Maybe a really big one going up and then going over, just going into there. Maybe we'll have it come out the other side and then go back in or something, go down maybe. Really starting to look cool. Adds a lot more detail, but we don't have to go ahead and like model that and make it really high poly or anything. Yeah. Texture painting is amazing. It's really cool. I should really practice texture painting more. This is looking pretty cool now. I'm going to change this back to the dots and then make my brush a little bit bigger and do the same thing. So just like add some bolts and things. I think I'll just add some big bolts going around the entire robot on like the waist. Okay. And then once we add the grunge, that's going to make it look really cool. Again, not adding too many. If you just add bolts all over the place, it might look a little bit too busy. So just, you know, play around with it. Try to figure out, you know, what looks good. Kind of eyeball it. I think that's just, you know, a good way to look at it. I actually want to go back to the line here, just add a few more because I found a few spots where I think it could have more detail. So just going to grab a few spots like that. Oh, maybe make that a little bit thicker. Okay, also I want to add a little bit more detail in a few of these spots. Okay, I'm going to go back to the dots, just add a few more bolts, but I think we're pretty much done here. Okay, I'm just going to leave it like that. So let's go over here again. Remember to save it because if you close it without saving, you'll lose that. So let's go image, save as, and this one I'm going to call it bodyplates.png. You can't see it's right behind me, but just name it and then click on save as image. I'm just saving this as a PNG. Okay, let's just go file and save this again. I'm going to go back to shading. And then also, if you want to change this, like maybe 0.5 or something. I'm just going to have these both at 0.5 so that they're a little bit less big. And then also, yeah, if you want to invert that, if it looks better to you, you could invert it. All right, looking really cool. He has a lot more detail now. So now let's go ahead and add that dirt and grunge. So I am going to click on this with the body plate selected. I'll press Shift D, duplicate this over. I'm going to press X on here, and then I can click on New, and this one again is going to be the same thing, so it's going to be 5000 by 5000, but this color here, I want it to be the same color as this one, so what I'm going to do is click on this, and I want to have the same color, so I'll click on the hex value, and you can see this hex value right here. I'm going to click on it, I'll press Control C to copy it, and then when I click on New, I can click on this color, and what goes over to the hex value, I can click on this and then press Control V, and that'll paste that. And now if I just click away, you can see now it's the same gray color. Just name it something that makes sense. So I'm going to name mine Body Grunge, 5000 pixels, and then click on OK. And then this, I want to plug it into the color. And you can see nothing should change because it's the same exact color, but we're going to be painting the grunge on it now. So let's go over to the texture painting here. Bring this over. So what I'm going to do is click on this texture, and that'll open up this texture. I'm going to click on New, and then I am going to click right down here to the texturing panel. It's on Image or Movie, so I'm going to click on Open, and then just locate to where you've downloaded these textures. Again, there's going to be free downloads with the link in the description, and if you've purchased this tutorial, then this is going to be with the files. So go ahead and grab this. I am going to use the grunge map first, so I'll click on that, click on Open Image, and then what I want to do is go back over here to the top, and I'll go to the texture settings. I'm going to scroll down here to the texture, and you can see the mapping here. It's set to tiled. I want to change this to stencil. Now, if I move my mouse over here, you can see the texture appears as a stencil. So what the stencil is it's a texture on top of your view, and then when you paint over it, wherever that texture is, it's going to place it on the model. So if I texture painted right here, then this picture would go on the model. So how you move the stencil is I'm going to right click and drag to move it around. And then if I hold down Shift and right click, I can scale it. And if I hold down Control and right click again, I can rotate it. Right click and then Shift, right click, and then Control right click. So let me just scale it up, kind of put it in the main view, kind of pull it up a little bit. I think maybe I'll rotate it and start off with like this side right here, and then just kind of move over. Now you can see if I just start to texture paint and then I move my mouse away so you can see what it looks like, it's adding this white and black, and that's really not what we want. What we want to do is just add the black. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl Z to undo that. What I'll do here is scroll up, and you can see that there's this blend. Right now it's set to mix. What I want to do is change it to darken. And now if I press F, make my brush a little bit bigger and start to paint, then move my brush away so you can see it. What it's doing, it's a little bit hard to see. What it's doing is it's just making that black. So it's just darkening it. So what I want to do is I want to add the grunge kind of at the bottom here. That's like the main place that I want to add it. So let me just make my brush a little bit smaller, kind of move it right here. And then I'll just kind of paint along here. I'm just going to move along and kind of paint in here, paint some of that grunge. Also, what you can do is this strength here, you could turn that lower, and then that way the grunge isn't going to be quite as strong. And again, if you're using a drawing tablet, then you could just press lighter on the tablet. I'm just going to be using the mouse because it's mostly just a lot of clicking anyways, but you could totally use a drawing tablet if you have one. So I'm just moving along here and clicking, and then I can just kind of move to an area and move my mouse away to just kind of see what that looks like. You can also just like move your view and then just keep it held down. You can kind of move around and see what it's looking like. Okay, let's keep going here. So this is a little bit fiddly, but you will get better at it. When I was first starting, I was finding it kind of hard, but it'll get easier. So what I did is I pressed Control and right click, and then I moved over. So now we're texture painting on this side so that it looks different on the different sides. I'm just going to hop back into layout and then go into rendered mode, and I can just have a nice look at what's happening. That looks pretty good. I don't want it to be like super strong, because if it's super strong, it needs to be somewhat subtle. Okay, let's just go back into texture painting. I'm just going to keep going. Okay, I'm going to Control, move my mouse over. I'm actually going to go down here. You can see there's some cool little it looks like some bolts or something. That's kind of cool if you want to texture paint that on. Okay, I'm going to go, let's go to this side now. I haven't used this side very much. Okay. And then if you want to add grunge some other places, I'm going to just right click and drag this down a little bit. And I think I'll just rotate it a bit. You could find a few areas on the top more here and paint a little bit. And then remember, again, don't close your Blender file until you've saved it. Let's try this. Go right here. Oh, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm going to go back into the layout now, just kind of see how that's doing. That's pretty good. I do want to add a little bit more though. So let's go back again to the texture painting. Do a little bit more. I want to make it a little bit stronger on some areas. Also, like, you could add a little bit of grunge if you wanted to. If I rotate this and kind of align it up with that right there. Maybe if I rotate that a little bit. I'm just going to try that, adding just a little bit of grunge on the side there. Yeah, like that. You could definitely do that. That looks pretty cool. Okay, let me go back to the layout here. Just look at this one more time. I think I'm going to call that good for that, but I am also going to add the other scratches and stuff. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's go back into texture painting. Now I want to use the other texture, so I'm going to go down here, exit this, click on new, just go to the texturing panel right here, and then this one I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to add the other one. So this is from the CC0 textures, add that in, and then this one you can see this is black with white, but what this is going to do, if I draw here, you can see it's kind of making it black and then just adding nothing in there. So that's not what I want. What I want to do is, let me just go back up here to the top thing, and then I'm going to go over here. Right now it's set to darken, and that's what we wanted for the other one. This one though, I want to add some little like scratches and stuff, like maybe some of the dark paint has been cut off or scratched off or something. So I want to change this one to lighten, and if I change it to lighten and then go and look at some different areas and paint, you can see if I zoom in here, that's what it's doing. So it's making some little like scratches and things and making it lighter. So now I can do the same thing. I can control right click, bring this over, maybe make my brush a little bit bigger. You could also turn the strength down if you wanted, and just throw in a lot of detail. So just throw in little scratches and things. Try to, you know, do it where it would make sense, like maybe the outer areas or something. Just add some different scratches in here and rotate it and stuff to make it so it's kind of random. Okay. Go back into the layout now, see how that's looking. That's pretty good, but I want to add a little bit more. So let's go back into texture painting and do that a bit more in some different places. Okay. Go back into the layout one more time, and I'm going to call that good. Okay, so we got some nice little scratches and things here. So I want to do a little bit of shading work. So as well as this body grunge being plugged into the base color, I want to give it a little bit of bump. So this bump node, I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it, drop it right here. And then this color, I'm going to plug this into the height of that one, make this a little bit bigger. And then this one is just plugged into the normal. So now we're adding those two together. Now, right now, that looks way too strong and it doesn't look very good, but if I change the strength way down, just make it very subtle, you can see that now it adds all that little detail right in there. And then if you wanted to use the invert, you could use that. That kind of makes it look like it's bumping out a little bit. I'm just going to leave it turned off though. Maybe make that just like a 0.1, something pretty subtle. But you can see that there looks pretty cool. Looks like it's kind of popping out a bit, and it's like kind of reflectant because it's like white. So now that same exact thing, we're going to do the same workflow for the top one. So I'll walk you through it and we'll do this. We do need to save this image though, because if we don't save it, we're going to lose it. So let's go right over here to the UV editing, click on this, and then I'm going to select the body grunge, and then we'll go image and save as. And again, I'm just going to save that where I have the other textures as body grunge.png, and I'll just save that. Okay, so now we just need to do one more bit of texture painting. So again, let's do the same exact thing. So I'm going to select the head. I'll exit this. I'm going to click on new. You can see it's still using the same color. So that's good. I'm using 5000, and then I'm going to call this head grunge. just like that, and then click on OK. And then it's already UV unwrapped, so that looks good. We want to just keep that like that. Let's go to the shading tab. And now that we have this object selected, we're in the head material. Let's press Shift D, duplicate this, bring it over. And then what we're going to do is click on this, change it to the head grunge, plug that into the base color. And if you wanted to, you could just do this right now. So just Shift D this, bring it over, plug this color into the height. And then this strength here, I'm going to turn it down to like a 0.1. All right, let's go back into texture painting now. So I'm going to go to texture painting right here. And then just make sure that right here, make sure that's the head grunge on the corner here. Just bring that down. You can see that we're already in this mode here. So if you want to just go ahead and do this now, you can, since we already have the texture selected. So I'll just scale this down a little bit. And we'll just start dropping those in. I think that's a little bit strong. I think I want to make my brush a little bit less strong. Just go around, find some interesting spots, try to make it random and different, and don't just add it anywhere. Try to think about, where the scratches might be. Maybe some on the front here. Maybe he has like a bunch of scratches coming down. There we go. That looks really cool. Maybe add a bit more scratches there. Right here a little bit. Some more on the top of his head. Let's rotate this to just a random rotation. Maybe a little bit on the back here. Let's go back into the layout, see how that's looking. Okay, I do want to add some more, but it's getting there. Let's go back into texture painting now, just do a few more spots that could use some more scratches and grunge. Okay, add some more in there. Okay, let's go into the layout again, and I'm going to call that good. And I really like that there's like some areas where there's more, and then maybe some of the areas there's less. All right, so now all we need to do is add in that little other grunge there. So let's go back into texture painting. We're almost done. I'm going to go here, and then if I just exit this texture, click on new, and then click on this, you can see it's still loaded into Blender. So I can just click on that. If it's not loaded into Blender for some reason, you can go to the texturing tab. And then just like right here, you can click on that file browser and go add it in again. But my one is still added into Blender right here. So I'm just going to click on that. And then again, we don't want it to lighten it. We want it to darken because this is a different kind of texture. So I'm going to click on the blend value, lighten, just change this to darken if I can find it. There it is, darken. And then put the grunge kind of on the bottom edges and add that in. Oh, that's looking really cool. Yeah, I really like that. It just really makes the robot, just, that last little bit of detail just really makes the robot go from looking okay to looking a lot cooler, Don't really know what to say. I'm just kind of doing the same exact thing, and it's not a step-by-step thing at this point because it's, totally random. Just kind of make it look good. Yeah, that looks cool. Okay. We're almost done here. I'm just going to do a little bit more, kind of make some more of that grunge. Let's do some here. Even like these areas, how it's kind of like, you can see it's kind of going back and forth. You could just dab just a little bit on some areas if you want to like make it look like it's been scraped or something. Like right here, this corner, just kind of like dab a few little bits there. All right, let's go back into layout here. Just see how that looks. And I'm going to call that good. So there we go. So just let's save this texture again. Go back to the UV editing or just go to the texture painting. Bring this out. Make sure it's the head grunge and go image, save as, and then just save it as headgrunge.png with the other files. So there we go. Now if I just go into full screen mode, just take a look at this. That is the finished robot 3D model. So something that I am going to do is press Shift A and add since we're in Eevee, I'm going to add this area light. I usually like to add like plain lights. I just like how those look, but I'm going to add an area light. And I just want to make it a little bit brighter. So I'm going to rotate this, scale it up a bit, just kind of give the robot a little bit more light because it is, kind of dark. And I think that looks cool, kind of the dark room. But I do want to give it a little more light. So it's just a little bit dark. So just pop that out, scale it up. Let's make it a rectangular. You can click right here and make it rectangle. And then you can just bring this up so that's a nice big light. Just make it a bit brighter. You could change the color if you want to make it like a blue light or red light or whatever. I'm just going to leave it white. Just bump that up a little bit more. That way we can really see that detail in there. So there is the finished robot model. If you want to like do a final render, I'm just going to do a final render here. So I'm just going to like click on these parts, rotate them around, just make something that looks kind of cool here. Okay, something like that. That looks pretty cool. And I like that there's that rim light there. So I'm going to press Shift A, add a camera, and then I can press Control Alt number pad 0 and the camera will jump to where we are. Just press G and move this around a bit. I want to make right up here, actually right down here, you can see the resolution. That's not really going to work very well because our robot is kind of square. So this down here, the 1080, I'm going to change that to 1920. And now it's 1920 by 1920, so it's a square image. I'll press G, move this over, G and double tap Z, bring it out. Oh, one thing that I actually forgot to do, if you go down here, you can see I actually want to add those red lights. You can see that right up here, there's the little red light. I want to do the same thing for this. So just really quick, if you want to do that, let's select this, tab into edit mode here. I'm going to go to face select with 3, and then I'll Alt, click on this, select this, Alt and Shift, select this, Alt Shift, select this, and then let's do the same thing here. So Alt and Shift and select this, this, and this. And then what I'm going to do is go down here to the materials. I'll click on New. We're going to add that red light, and then that's still selected. I'll press Assign, and then I'll just tab back into object mode. So now that little bottom area has some cool lights. And then if you want to make the bloom a little bit brighter, you can click on this. And then on the bloom setting here, you could change the intensity, make that brighter, change the radius too if you want to make it bigger. Okay, then let's just render this out. So I'm going to press F12 to render, and I'll go File and save this again. And you could add a background and do whatever you want, but I'm just going to leave it here for now. So here we go. Here's the finished robot 3D model. I think this is probably one of my coolest tutorials, but we're not done yet. If you want to go ahead and do the next tutorial, there's going to be a link up on the screen where we're going to be animating this robot and making a cool little animation. So join me in that part if you want to animate the robot, and I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.